Is your addiction as good for your health as it is for mine? Can you de-stress, relax, build self-esteem, and have increased positive feelings? My needle addiction led me to hooking, and I've been addicted to hooking for years, and it just doesn't seem to be letting up. What I'm talking about is crocheting. Crocheting is French for hook, which is a form of a needle with a hook on the end of it. I've been crocheting for 53 years and was taught by my grandmother. My good friend Nancy Hahn has 43 years of crocheting, and it says it keeps her from overeating by keeping her hands busy. She was taught by her mother, who was taught by her mother. According to Craft Yarn Council, there are over 50 million people of all ages who knit, crochet, and craft with yarn. It is very likely that you may know someone who uses yarn to craft. With little history, crochet is a method of weaving or sewing that has few tools and can produce an array of items, as well as being a stress reliever that a person can take wherever they may go. Let me introduce you some of the story behind the hook. Knitting, crocheting, and other yarn techniques are ancient, everyday crafts that rarely made it into the history books. In Gwen Morgan's book, Traditional Knitting, she found that the earliest knitting was brought from Egypt to the European countries around 400 AD. It was also suggested that the Arabs around the 8th century were also contributors to this form of sewing. This craft was not written down, but was taught from person to person. Nail binding, netting, and knitting are all ancient and Middle Age handcrafts taught by the elders. In the Middle Ages, the men were the ones to be in an apprenticeship for 6 years to be able to become a master knitter, for which they were tested. There was also nail binding and netting, which also done by the men. After the Industrial Revolution around 1760 to 1830, most knitting was done by machines. It wasn't until the Irish famine of 1845 to 1852 that the women were the knitters, and that's when crocheting gained its notoriety for extra income in the family. While each item I've talked about is mostly passed on from generation to generation, they all use needles. The needles are the tools by varying in size, shape, and by using different techniques, produce everyday items. The Good Housekeeping New Complete Book of Needlecraft, compiled by Vera Gill, has several pictures and examples of the tools or needles, along with my own examples of each of the craft that I'll be talking about. Nail binding is a weaving which uses a bone needle and looks like this. This is a picture of a bone needle, and it has the hole in it for the thread. Netting uses a shuttle. It's like a fishing net, and this is a shuttle, picture of a shuttle, and it has a thread in it. I made my own bone needle, and it has a thread in it also. Knitting uses two to four needles. This is 2 needles where it passes the yarn from one needle to the other, forming things that you can make like sweaters and socks and hats or anything you choose to make with knitting. Crocheting, like I said, is 1 needle, and it has a hook on the end of it, and there's different sizes. I've made this basket, and it's made with cloth instead of yarn, but it's crochet. You can also crochet hats and doilies. Lap quilts or afghans, or anything you want to make out of your yarn. While each of these techniques may use different needles, they all can have many health benefits. According to staff writer Catherine Versilio of Rodale News website, she mentions 5 common symptoms of health benefits from crocheting. It helps ease the effects of depression by breaking ruminating thought processes. Crochet gets your mind off of your physical pain by providing positive distraction. It also releases serotonin, which is a natural painkiller. Insomnia sufferers will have something to do late at night. And it also produces a soothing feeling of rest. Anxiety and grief are also helped with crocheting, with a focus on something else besides what might be troubling a person. Stephanie Watson of Harvard Health Publications from Harvard University writes that adults over 50 who volunteered on a regular basis were less likely to develop high blood pressure. And this is done by getting out and reducing stress, which contributes to health problems. Volunteering helps with serving others, which makes a person feel better about themselves. Socialization keeps a person less lonely and connected and less depressed. While the ancient history of working with yarn was mostly men, women today tend to be the ones to do the knitting and crocheting. With the stress of today's society, crochet is a stress reliever, a friendship maker, and a volunteer charity worker. My hooking is an addiction that gave me a chance to unwind, revive, and have a sense of accomplishment. Maybe the next time you see someone's handmade craft, you'll understand the addiction they had with their needles and making a difference in someone else's life. Thank you.